Okay. Yeah, welcome to the Kubeflow Pipelines community meeting. Today is December 3rd, 2025. This meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Kubeflow YouTube account after uh, this call has ended. Let me share my screen so we can actually take a look at the agenda. Okay. Um, Helper, you have the first point. Do you wanna go ahead with it?
Yeah, sure. So I wrote this proposal for using PVC as artifact storage. The idea is to lower the barrier for people who wants to experiment KFP, so they don't need to deal with an object storage and those kind of configurations. So they could just rely on Kubernetes persistent volumes. Uh, so yeah, if you guys can take a look. The idea is not to use it in production. This is intended for development. I wrote the cap uh, in a way that we don't forbid people from using in production, but uh, the idea is not encourage that. So I think we should leave that clear in the documentation.
Okay.
I was just curious why you don't recommend it for production.
Yeah, Julius commented already in the cap, and he gave me a good example, like in in a scenario where we have several namespaces, we would have uh, one artifact server per namespace, and that would be a lot of overhead. So yeah, and I replied him that in that scenario we wouldn't use that, but in simpler scenarios we could use that. So that's the reason why I didn't wrote the cap like forbidding people to use it in production.
I'm curious why we would need a server in every uh, namespace.
Yeah, there'll be two uh, type of configurations. The default one, the artifact server will be central. Like this is for multi-user, right? So in multi-user, we have several namespaces, one for each group of users. Uh, and PVCs can't be accessed between each namespace. So if we want to have a single PVC, like not if you want to have a single PVC, for example, the driver launcher and these components would have to write in the PVC, but each namespace would have its own PVC. So this would not be possible. So we decided to leave it flexible, like having two configurations. The default one is a central PVC and an artifact server. And the second one is having one specific artifact server for each namespace. So we can have total isolations and several PVCs for each namespace.
So what I haven't looked at the capsules. This is probably really premature, but my thinking was that we would be doing uh, streaming through the API server. So the PVC is actually mounted on the server, and then the API server is like the um, is responsible for handling tenancy and what have you concerns, and we don't require the driver or launcher In this case, it'd just be the launcher mounting PVCs. It's just communicating with the API server.
Yeah, and I think that's what Helber was trying to say is that we could support both, right? It's like one is a centralized case with multi-tenancy through subject access review, and the other one is like you could choose to have an artifact server in your own namespace, but it's not one or the other, right, Helber? Like you can mix and match. Like you could have everyone use the centralized one except for one namespace, for example. Or is it,
No,
or do you have to pick
actually,
one?
no,
Okay.
actually, it's one or the other.
Okay. I think we could probably change it so that it's not having to be one or the other. It's like use the centralized one by default, and then you can override it to use a different artifact server, which probably is in the same namespace, but doesn't have to be.
Yeah,
I see.
that sounds
How
reasonable.
how would the user decide? So this would be like at a profile level, right? Is this something to define in there via the UI or
It'd probably be like the KFP launcher config map.
yeah, that sounds good.
And the reason why it wouldn't be the API server and it's a separate server is you could scale it independently from the API server.
I see the central server. If you use the central option, it would still be an artifact server. It's just separate from the API server for scalable. Okay, that makes.
Yeah.
Cool.
I will say just do take a look at the MLMD removal and make sure it's in line with the changes there, because there's a lot of changes that are happening to the artifacts as well. So this is, I would suspect those changes go in before we implement this, is my guess. So just be aware.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I'll make sure folks from Capital One can also take a look at this. I know this will help with a lot of testing that we do with like any virtual clusters we spin up. Um, awesome. Uh, Himer, you want to go ahead with a release for 2.15?
Yeah, so 2.15 is out. It's got a lot. So please go through the changelog. This release contains the switch of the default deployment to CVFS rather than using Minio, which we haven't upgraded due to its licensing issues. It's viral licensing issues. So now we have switched the default deployment to CVFS. The deployment for Minio still exists. We're still testing against it. So consider this release as kind of like the release where you can have manifests available for both, allowing you to migrate. I don't know how long we plan to retain the Minio manifests. My hope would be that we remove these before the next, or by the next major version, or for the next major version. Sorry. It also does it has the upgrade for a bit for major versions for Gorm, which results in DB migrations. So I've left a couple of notes there in the release notes themselves, talking about this and suggesting that you first try this out in stage or do a backup because there's no rollback functionality for this migration. So we will provide more thorough documentations on the new features that have been added. Matt will be getting on that whenever he gets the capacity to. And there'll also be a blog that he'll also write. So stay tuned for that. It's a pretty fun release. There's a lot of neat features that are included in it. So just stay tuned for that. Matt?
Yeah, I did want to consider adding a few YouTube videos about some of the new features, and I was wondering if there is any guidelines around like what we can and can't post, if we have to, I don't know, if there's any rules or if it's pretty much just up to whatever I want to do.
Um, I'm not aware of any rules, but what it would be nice is if you have like maybe for Kubeflow pipelines right now, there's no precedent, but it'd be nice if you can have like a splash page in the front that we use for all of our videos, and we can throw it in a playlist or what have you, so like since this will probably be the first time since you'll be doing it and we don't have a precedent, we can use this opportunity to like create a standard of like, when you're starting your video, use this Kubeflow pipeline splash page or something, and use this as a thumbnail or basic stuff like that. Um, and I don't know if you're gonna throw slides on there, but maybe a Kubeflow slide deck
Yeah.
if we have
Okay.
one.
Yeah. I'll aim to like do a 2.15 release demo video, essentially, just showing some of the new features. And then we can link to it from the blog post.
Nice. We also did a release. So this, since all the versions are now aligned on their minor, we did a release on the Python packages as well. We hit a bit of a snag really quickly. Capital One folks identified the issue with well, it was an issue if you were installing like pipeline spec that was hard pinned, um, because we had not bumped the minimum requirement for that. Uh, but so that required a 2.15.1 patch release on the Python packages. And so if you're using the Python packages, go for the latest, please. I don't know why that's still set to pre-release. That should not be. Let me change that. Thanks for pointing it out. I think what I did was I set it to pre-release, and then my intention was to do the publishing and then set it to release. I forgot to set it to release. Yeah, okay, it's fixed now. Um,
As long
yeah,
as it's up in PyPy, that's all that matters.
yeah. This release was very painful. I was kind of venting about this in our maintainer sync as well. I think there's a lot of work to be done to automate a lot of the processes. Things like consolidating the packages should help a lot with that front. A lot of the problems tend to be related to like dependency management between the KFP dependencies that they have between each other. And yeah, so uh, hopefully we can resolve some of these and automate some of the other uh, toil work that's related to releases. If we can fix that, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I know Alex is wanting me to get the cap up for consolidation. Oh, is Alex here?
Yeah, he's typing.
I am sorry that I joined a little late.
No worries. I guess you could take the next it's your point, Alex, since you're here.
Sure. These are, I literally just, I saw that you were on the call, Chen, and I couldn't resist using this opportunity to ask if you have any kind of concerns or objections to taking the four distinct Python packages and consolidating them into a single Python package to hopefully alleviate some of this dependency conflict management and make the release process a little smoother.
The full package are server API, the main
Server, yeah,
KIP.
line spec, KFP, and KFP Kubernetes.
Uh, what's the? Okay, I try to recall the reason. So first, I think server API exists in KIP 1 v1. We just continue that practice. For pipeline spec back then, I think the reason we separate this is TFX, some version TFX also supports this IR spec. When we had this duplicate in KIP and TFX, users cannot install both packages at the same time because the protobuf generated the namespace. I think there's some conflict error. That's the reason we separate pipeline spec out. So if we decide we don't care about the TFX user, I think we can potentially consolidate this. But if we think about any user, they could potentially use both TFX and KIP, then we probably have to keep this pipeline spec out. For the Kubernetes, I think I agree. This probably should be part of the main package.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I really appreciate the context, Chen. I don't want to come in. A lot of thought went behind a lot of these decisions, and like we don't want to come in and just like not honor that process and decision making. So I really appreciate hearing your perspective and like hearing the background behind where some of these decisions came from. For example, I had no idea about the TFX support, so that's news to me. We'll have to dig into that and make sure that a merger there doesn't cause any breaking changes for TFX users. Um,
Yeah.
cool, that's good to know. And um, oh, and then the other question, and perhaps you had already gotten to this, Amir, but the Google Cloud components in the components subdirectory, uh,
Yeah.
are there any objections to relocating those? There is some like automated code pushes that happen from some like Google CI
Yeah,
that
we just need to update that. I think it makes sense to relocate all the components into a separate repo.
awesome. Good to know.
Yeah, maybe we can provide more context on the current status of the pipelines components repo.
Yeah. Yeah, Chen, when you say move to a different repo, do you mean the new repo that we're getting bootstrapped right now, or like a Google-owned repo?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we need to discuss this internally
Okay.
first. I think at this moment, if you have a timeline to move this to the new repo you are bootstrapping, I think it's fine to move everything together. And maybe we can decide later if we want to put this out to a Google owned repo.
The main thing we want to avoid is it like having some kind of negative impact on Google Cloud users if they assume that the components directory is going to exist in the KFP repo.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for. Yeah. I think right now it should be fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think there may be some documentation that point directly to the repo from what I saw. So that might need to be updated. But
Yeah.
yeah, the current or what was in the proposal, like the KEP, was that once we have the repo bootstrapped, it'd be like 60 days to move over components. Just because we don't want to keep them lingering around because most of them are unmaintained. But if like Google needs a little more time to make that decision, we can accommodate.
There's there is a special structuring to the components. Um, I don't know how many exceptions we want to make on that for the Google components. If it's all of it and we just include it, that's I guess fine. Um, but it's good to be aware of. I think it benefits to at least have like the metadata files. Then we can include documentation, automated documentation around it, which would just benefit users. I would consider, so we have like a lot of the documentation up on the repo, so you guys can also take a look to see if this is something you guys find value in, and you want to include it in this repo.
Yeah, and Humer and I were discussing, and right now it's like there's the core components and pipelines, and there's also third party. So it's like different tiers of support, but under each there's a component category. But to ease the migration, like we could maybe just have a Google category or Google Cloud category, um, and then all of your components could be under there.
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
have your team review the original KEP and then maybe the repo, and then if maybe like within the next few weeks, if you could let us know what you're thinking of.
Sure.
Yeah, I linked them in the doc,
Cool.
the meeting notes.
And the bot, uh, so one thing that I'm not a necessarily big fan of is the automated merges in the KFP repo. From the bot that transfers the commits. If we want automation to continue, I think what would be nice is if the bot would instead make a PR and then somebody can approve it rather than just like force pushing commits to the repository. Uh, that would that would be good. And then we can have like the bot be in the owner's file if the bot wants to merge it, for example. And this flow makes a lot more sense to me. If we want to keep this in the components
Yeah,
repo.
I think someone from my team looked into this. I think we might have some technical challenging to make the PR approved. It's just, yeah, we are using some internal tool. But I do acknowledge this is not ideal. Every time we force push, we reset the CI for other PRs, so they need to.
Yeah, so worth considering. I guess, and then just let us know.
Yeah.
Any other comments about the components repo? Cool.
Anya, you have the, oh wait, I guess Matt, that probably covered everything that you wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Anya, you have the next point.
Yeah, hello, that's me again with Kubeflow SDK integration. So just the follow-up on the previous conversation we had 2 weeks ago. So we discussed some action items. One of them is the proposal from the pipeline side on pinning the SDK at the API server level. Yeah, so just curious whether that's still on the roadmap on the pipeline side, and if there's anything we can help with, let us know.
I already forgot what. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Hime.
I was just gonna say I forgot what we had decided. I know that we put a pause on the current. This is about the KFP SDK integration, right, into KF.
Yeah, to install Kubeflow SDK as part of the pipeline. So
Yeah.
to give a context, there are like few action items. The first one is the proposal on the KFP side on how to pin the SDK at the API server level. The next one is the proposal from probably collaborative proposal on how to eventually migrate the pipelines SDK to the Kubeflow SDK. And then another one is probably maybe on our side, unless there are any volunteers from pipelines team, on how we can install and then write a thin wrapper around pipelines client in the Kubeflow SDK. That's going to be like a soft migration. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'll take advantage of Chen being here, but do you remember why the executor is being used? The version of the executor is the one that was used to compile the pipeline as opposed to one aligned with the API server version?
Yeah, I think it comes from those types we added in to those like artifacts, model, metrics, those artifact input output types. I think when we make I think when we initially add those types, we had a couple iterations, and it has to be compatible with the changes. So that's why we pin the version to the KP SDK, the main SDK. If you look at I think PR history, there was some small changes, but after that, it's mostly stabilized now. I think potentially any or not only the type, actually also the executor code is part of the KP SDK, right?
Yeah.
So every time
so
you make a change to the executor, you need.
Yeah, the question was more like, because technically I can get different behavior if I compile the same pipeline code with the different SDK, because it'll update the version that gets pip installed. And so what we were thinking is like, does it make sense to have the version if the executor used at runtime match the KFP API server that was deployed? So it's like life cycle them together, like we're versioning them together. because it's just inconsistent behavior potentially. It's just like it just depends on whose laptop the pipeline was compiled on.
Right. I think so. The issue for using API server version is like the Vertex pipeline rely only on the pipeline spec, not on the API server. So that's like orthogonal to GCP.
I see.
Yeah, I think I need to think about this. I think so. Ideally, the executor is not stable. I think potentially any version, even if you tie to API server, it should probably work for Vertex as well, as long as there's no change to the executor code.
Yeah, I mean, there are some times where you add functionality to the executor and then it ends up working on older KFP API server versions because it just pip installs the version you compiled the pipeline with. And so I don't know if that was like one of the reasons why it was done that way, is that so that you could inherit new functionality quickly without the platform actually being upgraded.
Yeah, I think this kind of related to the other PR I reviewed recently, the install KIP, the Kubeflow, the unified SDK on behalf of the user. I personally kind of don't like this behavior. Even the KIP, I think. So back then when in KIP v1, we don't like install any KIP during runtime. We just copy paste the executor code into the command line. Then we soon like reach the limit for the command line arguments. I think on Linux is like 13K. So, and to reduce the code size, we copy to command line. That's the workaround we made to install KIP SDK. And I still don't think that's the right design, but we made that decision back then. So right now I try to suggest maybe don't repeat that same for Kubeflow SDK.
I mean, now that we're also even talking about consolidating packages, like we're gonna have, it's gonna be even more silly if we're starting to install all of this other stuff. Is it possible that we can just be bundling the KFP server with the executor code itself, and that's because that's all we need from the package anyways, right? Matt?
Yeah, so we also had a tab. I think actually Corner did some experimental. So we tried to separate the executor into a KIP dash runtime package. So we only install the executor part of the code. And Corner has some, I think, found some challenge there. So we end up as install KIP with no dependencies. Also, when you install some package automatically, like the dependencies, sometimes it conflicts with what's existing in them.
Yeah, so the reason why I was asking you those questions, Chen, about the version is that we were thinking that if we were to like help the user install the Kubeflow SDK, like it would be aligned at the API server level, because then we know that SDK is compatible with the other Kubeflow components that were installed with it, assuming you installed it through like the Kubeflow platform and not just picking and choosing versions. But then that begs the questions like, should we do the same thing with the KFP SDK to pin it to the version of what's deployed as opposed to what the pipeline is compiled with? And then if we do move the KFP SDK to the Kubeflow SDK, we'd have to make that decision anyways. And so that's the context behind it.
Okay, but
this topic probably worth some follow up and potentially design some new alternative. I personally really don't like installing a Python package at runtime. This also causes lots of issue on GCP, like when they're using the VPC, their secure network premier, then they cannot reach PyPI public server, and
Yeah, but it's so good for our PyPy stats.
Yes, it boosts our PyPy stats.
What's our action item here?
Probably getting those if I feel like the consolidation is like precedence to like any merging that we would do to the Kubeflow SDK. At least it would just probably ease the pain, hopefully. Um uh yeah. In terms of like I guess Anya, would you say that having what would you say it's more important to have a pipelines client inside of the Kubeflow SDK compared to like allowing the Kubeflow SDK to be available during runtime without a user explicitly passing it as packages to install?
Yeah, from the beginning, I wasn't a big fan of this proposal from Francisco or Andre, but I think it's still like beneficial in some cases. But the most important thing is that to include the pipelines client eventually as part of Kubeflow SDK. So I guess we can do the kind of soft migration or just wrapping the existing client for now, maybe open the proposal meantime, and then eventually migrate the SDK, hopefully. Yeah, Hammer.
Matt, this is only a concern if we're installing the Kubeflow SDK, right? If let's say if it was the other way around and Kubeflow SDK is wrapping the pipelines SDK, then that's not a problem.
I think so. It could be. I think it's fine. I don't know if there'd be a little bit weird where we're installing KFP with no depths and then installing Kubeflow SDK, which pulls in a different KFP version.
Hmm.
Um, so that could be messy.
Okay.
But maybe we can revisit the idea of like rather than relying on like the Docker Hub Python image, we could maintain our own default image that has these Python packages pre-installed. Uh, I know we don't like maintaining images, but that might be better and solve some other issues like Docker Hub rate limiting.
Okay. If the issue is that like we're installing KFP ourselves for the need for the executor, and then we're installing like Kubeflow SDK, which is installing KFP, what if we didn't have to like install the executor? We don't have to install KFP at all for the KFP side of things, right? For our pipelines to work. And if we could solve that problem, then I don't think it matters. Then the user, then what is even the point of installing KFP? Uh, Including KFP with the KF SDK. At least for runtime, you don't need to, right?
Well, you just need the executor there.
Yeah, so if we could bundle that together with like you know how like we floated that idea of like how we pass the launcher binary, we can do something similar with like we can just do that with executor code. Uh, I don't know if we can either extract it somehow or uh, that might be too hacky though.
I mean, it's definitely doable on our side to like include it in the launcher image, for example, the executor and copy it over. Like that's not a big deal, but it seems like that would break Vertex.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay. So we have no choice but to keep the executor there. So we have to install the KFP package.
One option, this just popped into my head. I added it to the doc. Is what if we mount it as a config map, kind of similar to what like sync.py is doing. We just take that as execution logic and make it available as a cluster resource that then can be mounted to all the pods. Although it would make me sad to see the PyPy stats go down.
So it would still be part of the package. We just don't need to install KFP for every pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it kind of scares me because the pipeline runner service account can, I think, like, nah, I don't think it can modify config maps. Never mind. I thought it did for a moment.
Yeah, we'd have to figure out RBAC for it or like propagate the resource to every namespace, which there are drawbacks. It's not like a silver bullet, but just a thought.
Okay.
Or the launcher could just download it from the KFP API server or something like that.
Yeah. But we're not anti just pulling in just the executor code and nothing else. Silence.
That's a yes.
Okay, let's maybe we can pursue Kep on something along those lines.
Well, it's like it's a compile time decision if KFP SDK gets installed. It's not a runtime decision, and
Yeah.
so like that would break Vertex no matter what we do, unless Vertex is aligned with that too.
Vertex users are using the KFP SDK. Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I don't think we're going to solve this problem in the call. I think what we probably need is an action item for somebody to own this, which we don't have. I think we need to assign this to somebody. So if there's a volunteer, uh, either if you're not volunteering here, we need to maybe post this in Slack and have see if anybody's interested in taking this one on.
Maybe we should start with just like opening an issue or discussion on the pipeline side so that we can at least have something to track.
Yeah.
And then on our side, we might start looking into wrapping the existing pipelines client if there are no objections. And if there are any volunteers from pipeline side, please let us know. If not, we will greatly appreciate your help there as well.
We have a hand raised. I'm probably not pronouncing that right.
Yeah, it's very thanks. Yeah, sorry to jump in. So I see we are running the auto time. So for the context, I'm very from Niantic, the Pokemon Go company. So, we do have a open issue to, which is to contribute back our current batch to upstream. So we use KFPV2 for production to run high volume ML pipelines, and the limitation is we encounter the 10,000 character limit for input size. And we do have a patch that works internally and would like to contribute back to upstream. So yeah, if you got time, maybe you can take a look at our issue, and I can happy to open a PR or design doc to discuss further. Yeah. Thanks for the attention.
Is this the correct issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for offering to contribute it back. If it's like a relatively small PR that's not controversial, like go for it and we'll just review it. But if it's like a architectural change, then probably some sort of design discussion would be good.
I think it's pretty small change. So yeah, I will go ahead to create a PR.
And you can just tag some of the maintainers in Slack, the CNCF Slack.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks.
I will also say I did not know Niantic was using pipelines. We have a adopters file that it would be if Niantic wants to be present in it. I've linked it there. You can ask your organization if you guys would like to list it there. So just thought I would drop that.
Yeah, I will ask my manager. So yeah, if you happen to be at KubeCon, my manager in Portfolio actually had a keynotes this year. So how we use Kubeflow to support the read there in Pokemon Go. So yeah,
Nice. I'm gonna watch
Oh.
that.
Awesome. Yeah.
and drop the link. So yeah.
That was a really great keynote. Really enjoyed that and was happy to see Kubeflow mentioned as part of Pokemon Go. If that's not a secret, can I ask if Pokemon Go only uses pipelines or any other Kubeflow projects you are aware of?
Yeah, for now, I think we want to use pipeline. So, yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
I'm curious, like, is that 10,000 character limit, is that in the KFP code?
Yeah, I think it's in the SDK code. So we manually, since in V2 is passed by MLMD, so we manually increase the limit that works for us.
I wonder why that was placed there. Um,
I think
I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, yeah. I think in V2, since it's not handled, it is not stored in metadata, so there is a preset limit. But in V2, everything moved to metadata. So like the input parameters, like a large JSON will also be stored in which in we will also be installing the metadata. So the limit could be at least increased or removed. So yeah.
Have you tested against, like, I'm curious, like, if you, like, what the upper limit of that you've tested against?
Uh, we haven't tested the upper limit. So we use like for 20K and it still works. So yeah.
I wonder if part of this came from like the compilation Argo workflows and limits in that. Maybe moving that PR that like moves stuff into the Argo workflow arguments offset like enables this higher limit. But I'm not sure. This is great though. Thanks for the contribution.
Yeah, I will share more detail in the PR. Yeah.
Nilesh?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from a QA angle, um, where I think the limit, if the limit is too high, we may see some limitations in the HTTP request. I think there are limitations on different agents. Uh, I remember running into a REST endpoint where we had 100,000 character limit on one of the header or yeah, or the body. I think it was the body, and we had to gzip in order to allow that. So we may actually need to do something else as well in case we start to hit into some other types of limits.
Uh, yeah, I think we're running out of time. I do not have an immediate answer for that, so maybe you can follow up.
Yeah. Looks like we have the issue as well, so you can probably comment there, Nilesh. Please follow up with the PR, and you can also tag one of us. You can tag me, or you can just link it in the People Pipelines channel. We can try to get attention.
Sounds good. Thanks. Thank you, folks.
Nilesh, you still have your hand up. Did you? Okay.
It does not lower your hand automatically.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Anything else from anyone? I know we're over 6 minutes, but I feel like it should be an hour designated anyway. But yeah, if nothing else, I guess we can adjourn unless
I was just gonna say, like, we
oh,
started the meeting with like one item, and I was like telling Michael that you think that it's gonna be a short meeting, but we're probably gonna go over time, and we always do. So there you go. All right, that's it.
Kind of on that front, maybe we should actually increase the meeting to an hour, saying we always go an hour anyway.
Add it to the next agenda item.
What's funny is that I'm seeing in the Zoom account it says 1 to 2. So I don't know where the 40 minutes comes from.
Oh,
But yeah,
maybe when we switched to Zoom, we made it an hour, whatever. We have our hand raised, current. Oh, we can barely hear you.
Now it's fine.
Yes.
Um, Hi. I was using KFP, and I was just wondering if we can do a kind of like a GPU index spinning for the components. Like, um, it's just like I have a requirement where a specific set of GPUs has to be used for specific pipelines.
Yeah. We actually have this is the KEP that Alyssa's working on, right, Matt? Where we provide a enum style like optional for inputs. So basically, current is your use case that you want the user to be able to select from a specific like predefined list of GPUs and they shouldn't deviate from this input. Uh,
That's true. Right now we are using the operator plugin, NVIDIA.
Okay,
yeah.
so you want to use, so you're planning to use node selectors presumably, or resource requests for GPU, or
Node selectors currently, I think it's been supported because we can select the nodes right now, and through that, like, are we able to support uh, the devices on the specific node selector? Because uh, uh, some of the nodes has a mix of GPUs, like different families of GPUs.
gotcha.
So,
And so,
so if it can be like if we can use it using node selector, then it's also fine. And I don't know like how we gonna implement it using the limits.
yeah, I'm not super familiar with that because whenever I've done like the NVIDIA operator, it's always been just like a resource request of like nvidia.com/GPU or something like that. Is it similar? Or?
Yes.
So
So
how you
just
do CPU and memory, there'll be like a GPU one.
right. NVIDIA
Yeah,
slash.
I think that's today when you do set accelerator type and set accelerator count on the KFP SDK. I think that's what it gets set.
Yep.
Yeah, I was trying it today using. I'm on 2.14 version. I was trying it today, but what is happening right now is um, it's uh, it's not able to update the pod spec. So I have that in the IR, the specification for NVIDIA slash GPU, but it's not taking the inputs in the pod spec. So whenever the pod is coming up, there are no resources defined, and what's happening is all the NVIDIA CUDA devices are visible to that specific pod.
So you don't
I
see the request for the GPU selector, not sure it doesn't show up for the pod.
Correct.
Okay.
Can you share the pipeline that you're using, and we can try it and
Sure.
give you feedback? Yeah, you can just tag me in Slack. We'll take a look.
So I was trying to ask in the chat as well, like there is a way like how we can do is looking using dynamic resource allocation from NVIDIA, where it just exposes your GPU devices through NVIDIA drivers. So I don't know, like I can draft a plan like a like a issue or something, and I can discuss more on that. Probably there are some few ideas which we can discuss if we are implementing something like that, or if we are interested in implementing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think maybe let's start with like tagging Matt as a handle. I'll type it in Slack. I think this is what it is, or is
Yeah,
it Matt? Okay.
yeah, you can do that for your specific issue now, but then
Yeah.
an issue for supporting the DRA, or if you have like a full design in mind, you can write a KEP. There's a proposals directory in the KFP repo, and you'll see the template there.
I'll link both. So
Yeah, proposals directory.
I also linked it in chat.
Yeah, so if you have like a design in mind, this is the best format, and then you make a PR with it. But if you're still in the ideating phase and want some input, then yes, GitHub issue is probably good.
All right. Thank you.
Very eventful meeting. Um, I'll ask again. Anyone else? Anything? Since we apparently have 7 more minutes now. I'll take the silence as a no. Um, awesome. I'll stop the recording and we can adjourn. If I can. Okay, there it is. Yeah.